Yeah, yeah. Python is an object-oriented programming language. So everything in Python, Python is an object-oriented programming language. Everything in Python, Python is an object-oriented programming language. Everything in Python it will be creating object. So to create an object, we'll be using, there are two things that creating object. So to create, so one is we need class constructor. So what is class constructor? See, uh, class constructor, we have created an object from the person class. For example, we will create a class called person. Right, so this is our main class, and now we will be creating an constructor. Right, so class without a constructor is not really useful in real application. So we will be using constructor function to make our class more useful, like the constructor function in Java or JavaScript. Python has also a built-in init function, constructor function. The init constructor function has a self parameter which is a reference to the current instance of the class, right? So in it, we'll be passing the parameter. We have self, and will be also be having the name as a parameter. Now we'll be declaring that that is self dot name that is equal to name, right? Now what we'll be doing, we'll be creating a variable called t, in which we'll be calling that uh, class name person, and I will pass my name Farhan, and then I will be printing p dot name and then print p. Right. Now when I run this, obviously you will be seeing my name there. Right. So understand here, uh, this is the class, this is the class here, and this is the constructor in which we have two parameters. One is self. So why are we using self? The self will be using, which refers to the current instance of the class. So it refers current instance of the class. And then we will also be having one more parameter, that is name. Right. Now I will be passing that self dot name, and I will be declaring that, and then we will be printing that name. Now here's what we have seen, the class constructor. Right. So we'll be saying, uh, we'll add more parameters to the constructor. So with the name, we'll also be adding, like we'll be adding more names or parameters such as first name, last name, and age and city, right? So we'll be adding this. So we can write this as first name. Also, I will change it here. So first name, and also select the last name that is equal to last name. Also self for age, and given the age, and also we have city. For city, we will also be giving city. This is what we have given. We have given different parameters: first name, last name, age, and city. Now, uh, for that parameters, we'll be passing the arguments by creating that same person. Right. So here, my first name will be Sanyat, last name will be uh, Farhan, and the age will be 20, city will be Bengaluru, right? Now, I will be printing all those first name, last name, age, and city. So to print that, I will be using t dot first name, print, print t dot last name, printing t dot age, and also will be printing the city. Right. Now when I run this, obviously we'll be seeing, uh, you will see that we have printed all those past arguments such as first name, last name, the age, and the city. Right. So that is how we create a class called person. We create a constructor in which we'll be passing the first name, last name, age, and city, and then we'll be passing those arguments and then printing. Now we will see object method. So object can have methods, right? So the methods are functions which belongs to the object. So what are methods? See, methods in Python, methods are functions that belong belongs to the object, right? Now we will see an example here. Again, we'll be having that same class. I will copy the same thing here. Mm, Same class person, same constructor, and same parameters. And inside the class person, we'll be having one more uh, method, right? Or that is person info, right? Person info, in which we'll be passing self. Okay. Now I'll be returning here with my your string, that is self dot name, so self dot first name and self dot last name, and first name last name is self dot age, years old, uh, he lives in self dot city. Okay. Now I can just print this person or I will pass all those names, arguments such as my name, first name, last name, and right, the city age and city, and we'll be printing the p dot person info. Now when I run this before this, I will comment this out, and now when I run this, as you can see, it has become a complete a sentence which has all the parameters, uh, first name, the last name, the age, and also the city. So how we did this is we have created a method. That is, methods are the functions that belongs to the object, right? So this is the method, and this is the function that belongs to this method, belongs to this object. So next is we'll be seeing how that is default methods, object default methods. So we're saying that the object default methods, object default methods. So sometimes you may want to have a default values for your object methods. And if we give default values for the parameters in the constructor, we can avoid errors when we call or instantiate our class with our parameters. Let's see how it works. So we'll be giving the default parameters. So for example, we have that same class here, and we'll be copying the same thing. Just a second, I will be pasting it here. We'll be having one more thing that is country. Now, as you can see, we have you know default values for the parameters. So these are the default values for the parameters in the constructor itself. So this is the constructor, right? So we are providing default values in the constructor itself. Previously, what we did, we created a separate uh, you know variable to store those parameters, right? But now we have created a default parameters. Right? So why will we create? We'll be using this default parameters because in the constructor itself, because to avoid the uh, errors, right? So again, when we run this, it will run as it is because we have personal and we have also for person too, right? Now, what are the methods that we to modify, right? What are the methods? So first let me just minimize this. What are the methods to modify class default values? Uh, in the example below the person class, okay, so we will be using the here, if you can see this code, so we have that same class person and we have the constructor. Okay. Now, uh, we have given the default parameters in the constructor itself. Now we have created one more function person information in which we have stored all the person information we have by using the if string. And then we have created one more uh, function that is add skill. And also we have created an empty list called skills here. Right. Now, what we'll be doing is we'll be modifying the class by default values. So these are the default values, but we have not provided any skill for that. So instead of directly giving the skills, we have created a function called add skills in which we'll be appending those skills. So as you can see, we have given those skills HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. So now when we run this, as you can see, these are the skills that have been added to the person one. Similarly, we can also add for person two, that is, we can directly use p2 dot add skills. I can use that skill as Python. And now when I run this, as you can see, that skill has been added for person. So that is how we can modify the classes by default values, right? Now we will move on to the next topic, that is inheritance. Now what is inheritance? See, in Python and also in object oriented programming, we have inheritance. So inheritance is where we can reuse parent class code, right? We can reuse the parent class code. So we'll be having two things here. One is the what is it? So it the inheritance allows us to define a class that inherits all the methods and properties from the parent class. Right? So this inheritance allows us to define a class that inherits all the methods and the properties from the parent class. So we'll be having two classes, two important things in the inheritance. One is the parent class. So what does this parent class does? So we can also call this as a super class. Okay, super class or uh, base class. Right. Now, which gives all the methods and properties. All methods and the properties to the child class. Now, we also have the child class. So what it does is, so it inherits from another or parent class. right? So it inherits from the parent class. Now, you see an example here. So we have an here one code.